Hello, 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 and welcome to Nana's Crochet Ideas. I am your host, Teri, and today I am going to do something a little different. Now, as you all know, I kept count of my yardage over the last 12 months, and Lottie and I are continuing that challenge for the remainder of this year. And many times I am getting the question, how do I figure out how many yards of yarn I've used? So I am going to take a minute and show you the process that I go through to figure out how many yards that I use. It doesn't mean it's the right way or the only way, it's just the way that I do it. So let's turn the camera around and get to it. Okay, so let's get started. Here I have my scale. This is a jewelry scale. It does both grams and ounces. I always set it to ounces. And I have my calculator here. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my yarn. Now this is a ball of yarn that I'm currently working with. I did rip the label off because I needed to get the yarn out of the center. So if you look at your label, this yarn is 16 ounces and 1,015 yards. So I will enter in 1,015. I will divide that by 16 ounces, and that'll give me how many yards I get per ounce. Then I will take my yarn and put it on my scale, like so, and multiply this number that I have in here by this number on my scale, which is 8.12, and that will give me 515 and 9/80ths of a yard. Now the way I do it is I round it out. So I would probably say this is 515 yards, and that's what's left. Then I would have to take my 1,015 and subtract the 515, which would leave me with 500. So far I've used 500 yards of this yarn. Okay? Now, I would do the same thing with Eversoft. Now, if you remember, that was 63 yards, 63 yards per ounce. But if I weigh my Eversoft, now if I figure this out, this phone. It is 270 yards. I would put that in, divided by 5.29 ounces equals 51 yards per ounce. And I have, so then I would multiply by the number on my scale, which is 2.455. And that equals 125.3. Now this is the yarn I have left. So then I would take the 270 yards, subtract the 125, which would give me 145 yards. So I used 145 yards of this. Okay? Now, sometimes I will round it out. That was 125.3. I might, I'll either count the 0.3 in what I've left and round it up to 126, which it did say on there that there were 126 yards left, which meant that when I counted my 145, I only did 144 and didn't count the 0.7. So that's up to you how you want to do it. Now let's say we have a ball of yarn. Now, because these, excuse me, are my scraps, I know that this is mandala yarn. I also, because I use it so much, know that there are 590 yards in a cake, and that cake is 5.3 ounces. So I took 590 divided by 5.3 equals 111. So with the mandala, you get 111 yards per ounce. So this is why, as you can tell, there's a huge difference between the yarns and how much yards you get per ounce. So that's why I do each one of my yarns and figure them out separately. So this is going to be 111. I have 0.7 ounces of yarn in that ball. Oops. Hold on, I just messed up. 590 divided by 5.3 equals, multiply that by 0.7 equals, so there is 78 yards, 77.92. I count it as 78 yards left in this ball. So generally what I will do is, because I don't have a label to write on it, I will put it in my chart that I use to keep track of how much yard I'm using. I'll put it at the bottom of the chart, the color, what kind of yarn it was, and how many ounces or how many yards is in the ball. And then when I use it, I'll know how much was there. If I don't use it all, generally I'll try to use it all, and then I'll know how many yards I used. Now, let's say, for example, you get donated scraps like Lottie does. She is not going to know she's not going to always know exactly what kind of yarn it is. So in those instances, you have to kind of guess. So if it's like a red heart yarn, or, if it's simply soft Caron, you might know that it's that kind of yarn. And then go to that yarn. I usually go to walmart.com and look up the yarn, and it'll tell me how many yards comes in a skein or cake. And then I'll do the math from there, weigh the ball like I did here, and figure it out to the best guess that I can do it. So that is my process. I hope that answered the questions that you guys have been giving me, and that it was understandable. Okay, so as you can see, every different yarn type and every different yarn has a different amount of yards per ounce. So, for example, the first two yarns I had, the first one was a Bernat yarn, and it was 61 yards per ounce. The second one was Premier Eversoft, and it was 53 yards per ounce. And if I had a red heart here accessible and checked it, it would have a different number of yards per ounce. And yet they're all considered a number 4 weight. So in the event you have a scrap ball, you have no idea what kind of yarn it is, it came from somewhere else, I would use my best guess, which I would figure it out to be, I would take the 4 weight yarns. I would take Red Heart, whatever the one is at Michael's, whatever the one is at Hobby Lobby, and I think Lion Brand now has one. And I would figure out how many yards each of those yarns had per ounce. And then I would get an average, and that's the number that I would use to figure out how many yards I was using. Again, that is the way that I would do it. It doesn't mean that's the way you have to do it. I think that I am, I don't know. I think that I am very specific and particular in the things that I do, and so I try to be as accurate and sincere as I can be. I don't think that everybody is going to want or desire to put that much effort or energy into figuring it out. So, but you have to do you and I have to do me. So the other thing is I did my scrap blankets last month and they were all done with Premier Parfait yarn. What I found is that the variegated yarn had one amount of numbers of yards per ounce. The solids had a different number of yards per ounce. And the cakes that had the mix of the solids and the variegated in it had a totally different number of yards per ounce. So how do you figure that one? I don't know. But so I'm just trying to explain that you come up with different numbers every single time. And, like I said, depending on how accurate you want to be or how generic you want to be, you can figure it out. So I hope that some of you will join in. I hope that this answers questions. I hope that was hopeful. I hope that was helpful to you. Those of you who have asked about it or who want to participate or join in with us. And I hope that I explained it well enough. If you have any more questions, please feel free to ask me and I will do my best to answer it. So let's move on to our blessing for today. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusted in him, and I am helped. Therefore my heart greatly rejoices. And with my song I will praise him. And that is from Psalm 28:7. And here is our picture and our verse. So that is a blessing for today. May God bless you all today and every day. Have a wonderful few days, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye now.